Good evening and welcome. This is our closed session opening. It's November 14th and it's 6:32. I will take roll call. Director Madavi?
Here.
Director Deppie?
Here.
Director Sherswat? Here. And Vice President Hassai?
Here.
Okay, we're all here. Are there any public comments? Seeing no public comments?
Clarification again in the agenda. It's Kensington Police Officers Association. This is the second time this error has been brought up.
So are there any public comments? Seeing none, we will adjourn to closed session. Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to thank Sheriff Livingston for bringing to our attention Chief Simpkins, and we are delighted to have him present. I also see Chief Keith in the room and Supervisor John Joya. So thank you very much, and I'm going to turn my mic over to Sheriff Livingston. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I understand my responsibility tonight as the sheriff is to swear in Chief Simpkins. And first of all, to the district board, thank you for having us. Also to the community, we appreciate being here to help. And to my fellow law enforcement officers and some chiefs in the room, thank you. And officers that are here from Kensington, welcome as well. This is important for us. Who you see here is our command team from captain and above. We go as a team, we work as a team, and we provide services as a team. So I believe it's my duty now to swear you in. Should we do it over here?
Oh, you have working mic?
I do, thank you. All right, Steve, if you'll face me and raise your right hand, please repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the State of California. That I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter, and during such time as I hold the office of Interim Chief of Police. Congratulations. Supervisor Joya, you were in the room as well. Thank you for being here. I just want to say that when we come in under contract to a community, as we do in Danville, as we do in Orinda and Lafayette, and some other smaller contracts as well, we bring the full resources of the Office of the Sheriff. If there were an event to happen here in Kensington, Chief Simpkins could pick up the phone and have probably 30 to 50 deputies here within minutes. Give us hours, we can have 500 deputies here. The point is that we all work together as a team. Our chiefs are all collegial, and the resources of the Sheriff's Office are here for you. Whatever Steve needs, I made it clear to him, he gets. There will come a time when you will move on, presumably to another chief, and I'll have him happily back in his assignment. So with that, I'd invite Chief Simpkins to say a few words.
Thank you, Sheriff, and to the board and to the community and to all of my friends and command staff and peers out there. I just want to say thank you for your support. And I want to thank my wife and my son. My wife, Kristen, and my son, Brett, are here. And it's important to have support at home as well. And I'd like to thank the Kensington officers specifically. The POA is represented and the officers are here. A couple of them came on their own time from a long distance away, and I really appreciate that show of support, and we're here to do everything we can to provide excellent police service to the community. So, thank you.
let them know, let everyone know what your assignment is, please, starting with the undersheriff.
Mike Caston, I'm the undersheriff of the Sheriff's Office, second in command, in charge of all operations.
Chris Simmons, I'm the Assistant Sheriff. I oversee our support services and our administrative services bureau.
John Loudon, Assistant Sheriff, Field Operations Bureau.
I'm Tom Chalk, I'm a captain. I'm the West County Detention Division Commander.
Good evening. My name is Dan Hoffman. I'm a captain, and I'm our Training Division Commander.
Good evening, Jason Mora. I'm Captain in charge of Technical Service Division.
Good evening, Jose Beltran, in charge of Martinez Detention Facility Division.
Good evening, David Hartman. I'm a captain on the Corners Division Commander.
Steve Orbley, I'm the captain in charge of the Special Operations. I oversee the contract cities, except for this one, and Marine Patrol and the boats. I'm sorry, in the helicopter.
I'm Melissa Clavoon. I'm a captain in charge of our investigation division.
I'm Pam Hofstadts. I'm the chief of the crime lab.
Jason Haynes, Captain of Professional Standards.
Good evening, Brian Vanderlyn. I'm the Division Commander.
Good evening, Tori Cornflip. I'm a captain, and I'm the division commander for emergency services.
And Steve suggests that perhaps the chiefs would like to introduce themselves as well.
Brian Addington, I'm the chief of the Pittsburgh Police Department. Good evening, everyone. Ron Rahman, I'm the chief of San Pablo Police Department.
And Paul Mulligan, I'm Chief of Inspectors at the DA's office.
And I'm Paul Keith from El Cerrito.
Well, that does it for us, and just so you know, I did buy all of them dinner before we came over here tonight, just to be fair. But they were all here to support not only Steve and the residents of Kensington, but this board and its manager. We're happy to do it. Thanks very much for that.
Thank you very much. We're all thrilled to have Chief Simpkins with us, and very much appreciate all your effort to bring him for us. We have a couple of other honored guests tonight, and Tony, would you like to introduce them, please? Besides, by the way, Fate, who's a fully trained guide dog, and she's backed by popular demand with people asking me where my dog is. So I picked her up on Tuesday, and she's waiting for placement.
Before I introduce the new staff members, I did want to publicly thank Sheriff Livingston for his assistance really in the last year, assisting Kensington in the search for a new interim police chief. It's been a very difficult process, and he's been a tremendous resource. I just want to acknowledge how helpful he has been. It's great to see the Sheriff's Office here and to know that we're working together and that we're trying to build better relations among our communities in the county. I'd like to introduce our new administrative staff. We have two of the three present tonight. One of them was unable to attend. We have Catherine Corsack, our new district finance and business manager. And she has a wealth of experience and is already plugged into the system and working very hard. And also I'd like to introduce Linnell Lewis, our new clerk of the board. Thank you, Linnell. Linnell is someone I've known in the past, and we're very fortunate to have someone with her background. She literally has a background in every area that we could use assistance with. And Linnell's also a certified municipal clerk. Alan Swain could not attend tonight. He had a personal commitment, and so Alan works at the front counter. Please come by and say hello to Alan if you have an opportunity. We'll introduce him at another meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have two cakes in the back. One's chocolate and one's a white cake, I believe. And we would like to have a little bit of a celebration. Even though you brought your officers dinner, we have dessert for you. So thank you very much.
I hope you're hungry.
All right, it is 7:36, and we will begin
Here, Mike.
the open session. We will begin the open session of our meeting. I'm going to take roll call. Director Madavi. Here. Director Deppie. Director Shara Squat. Here. Vice President Kasai. Here. And I'm here as well. And I will report out of closed session that we gave direction to our attorney. We are on the brink of an agreement, and the key terms have been agreed to, so I'm happy to announce that. And we will have that on our December 12th meeting. And I'm going to pull item 10A, which is the tentative agreement for discussion. We will pull that and present that at our for action at our December 12th meeting. Are there any public comments?
Good evening. It's not on, is it?
It is.
Oh, okay, fine. I have a question. Have we received an official bid from the El Toledo Police? We have not received it. All right, okay, thank you.
And at our last meeting, we extended the response until December 16th. Any other public comments?
Good evening. My name is Andrew Gutierrez. Now, one of the most important tools that we have as citizens are public record requests. I made only one. I have made only one public record request, and that was to find out who was the requester for the mug shot in the smear flyer that was sent against Chief Hall. I also reviewed all the public records requests from Kensington for the first 6 months of 2019. There were 42. It was a huge increase over previous years. More than 80% of those requests were from people who are status quo police supporters and vocal critics of the current board and how it's managing its affair. The broad scope of the request is documented by comments like all emails, text, messages, and other electronic and written communications between blank, 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 blank. And there were several of these. Some of them, the requests covered extended periods of time, January 1 of 2016 to the present. Many of the PRAs involved hundreds of documents, many of which needed to be reviewed by legal counsel. The legal costs alone were more than $25,000, plus countless hours of staff, district secretary, general manager, district council, and unpaid board time were required to assemble them and to vet them. And yet many of the same requesters criticized the KPCS board for not getting things done, despite considerable evidence to the contrary, and for supposed frivolous expenditures of money. How much of the unpaid board member times did these requests require? Time that could have been spent constructively on district business, such as the ongoing renovation of the community center, improving garbage and green waste services, housing for the KPD in the proposed renovation of the public safety building, evaluating alternatives for high-quality police services, working with the county to alleviate the dangerous traffic on what I call the Kensington Freeway, and working with the fire department to improve fire safety. To my knowledge, most of these were fishing expeditions, these PRAs. No evidence of malfeasance, misappropriation of funds, nepotism, dishonesty, corruption, or evidence of even a bad hair day. came from these PRA requests? Was it merely harassment? The full list of these PRAs can be viewed on fixrkpd.org, the webpage. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Okay, we'll begin our meeting. The first item on the agenda is the consent calendar, and that's the minutes of the October 15 meeting. I move to adopt the minutes.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Director Madavi?
No.
Okay. Director Deppie?
Yes.
Director Shara Swatt?
Yes.
Vice President Desai?
Yes.
Okay, and I will vote yes, so it passes 4-1. Thank you. All right, the next item are general manager comments.
I have comments on 2 items this evening. There's an update included in the general manager's report on the community center progress. And the architect has given me a list of a number of things that are currently going on or recently completed. The key piece of information is that the project is still on schedule and estimated completion in early 2020, possibly by February. And then we've also scheduled a finance committee meeting for the first week in December. I think the date is set as for the December 3rd. And that will include a budget status report for the current budget and also the budget versus the actual expenditures for the last fiscal year. And this information then will be presented to the Board of Directors at the December 12th meeting after the finance committee. Thank you.
I had a question about finances. So where are profit and loss statements? Because A, the board had asked you at the last meeting to even give us the October one, and that was never done. And every month since then, we have not had a profit and loss statement.
Because government doesn't.
Expense revenue, whatever it's called, same thing.
Okay.
No, but where is it?
Well, we're planning to do it on a quarterly basis, and we're planning to present it at the December finance committee meeting.
So we're going from monthly to quarterly, so you're reducing the amount of fiscal information this board takes in every month.
No, that was the policy that the board adopted and agreed to when we presented the budget last year. It's a policy that we're trying to follow. I think we missed 1 quarter last year. Other than that, I think we presented it on a quarterly basis.
Well, when I asked...
We also have a new format that's a little easier to utilize than the previous profit and loss statement.
Well, I also asked multiple times, and the board had asked you for an October one, and we never got that. So that was a board directive.
I don't think that October one's quite ready yet. But
It's November 12th.
What we'll be presenting in December will be the October one.
So in other words, we are flying blind most of the year about how finances are being spent.
That's, I don't think I agree with that statement. I don't think we're falling blind.
Well, we don't know how each account is doing relative to where it should be.
Well, let me repeat that again. We've approved a system where it's provided on a quarterly basis. We present this quarter at the December finance committee.
So in other words, the board has approved the policy where we are now giving the community less information about our finances.
No, we're giving better information.
Less. You can always do those and give the quarterly reports.
Well, if the board wants to change to a different system, that's the option of the board. I'm following the direction that the board has given me in the past.
Okay, then I have a question about your administrative staff. So, how do you think it's appropriate for district staff to be working from home on financial projects, some of which is controlled sensitive information?
I think it's appropriate to work from home.
And what are the time tracking locks we have in place? Like a lot of companies, they use like keyboard monitoring or time recorders to ensure employees are actually doing their work.
Well,
High level use those too. Lawyers use those.
Well, these are not lawyers. I think we have an appropriate system in place and we're going to be implementing that system.
And then also, with the church, you said we have staff members working out of the church. What contract or agreement do we have with the church for that?
I'm sorry, the church?
Yeah, in your email to the board, you said that one of the staff will be working out of the church intermittently in an office in the church.
Yeah, we are having, that's correct, yeah. You're having a office space issue. The fire board is taking over the conference room.
That is their conference room.
And it's limited our office space. And with the new interim chief, the former chief is moving to a different office, so we have limited office space.
And I should point out that this was pointed out multiple months ago. And the conference room was never actually meant to be office space in some level. So clearly this was pointed out, no action was taken, and does the church even know that we're now permanently housing staff in the church?
We're not permanently housing staff in the church.
Okay, for how long?
As needed, it's going to be different, depends on the work.
And what is the agreement with the church we have in place for that? Because that's still their space.
There's a contract, we have a contract.
Yeah, I really don't want to debate this.
This is information that we should know.
If you have concerns about space, please come to the board and we'll happily take some action. If you need us to take action, that would be fine.
I'd like to point out our public safety building is police space for the most part.
I'd like to move on, and Chief Simpkins, if you have any comments that you would like to address. Yeah, that would be good. And then try this mic.
This one works, though.
I'll take a side stance here so I can get everybody's attention. So thank you again, members of the board, coming and supporting this swearing in to the board as well. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's been a whirlwind few weeks already. And so let me work through some of the things that I'm working on and give everyone an update as to that. One of the first things that I did is I wanted to get some initial impressions. I have a significant amount of police experience, but I don't have any experience as an officer in Kensington. So I wanted to compare what I have seen and experienced over the years and make sure that what I saw here reconciled with that. Do I see good police work? And so the first things that I did was I did a spot audit of our police reports, the investigations therein, and the crime stats to see, am I seeing good quality police work? And the answer to that is yes. The reports that I reviewed contain the necessary elements, they contain a proper investigation. The things that I have been reviewing look good. There is good police work occurring, and that was important for me to take a look at. I also looked at the crime stats for the last 30 years. It's a very easy thing to do that's publicly available on the FBI's website and the state DOJ's website. And as I compared the crime stats, they were very, very similar to the surrounding communities. In my experience in the other part of the county, there's nothing out of the ordinary. It follows the same charts, the same time periods. For your information, there was a humongous spike everywhere in 2002, 2003, and it went back down since then, and that's exactly what I see here in the community. So looking at about 30 years worth of crime stats, there wasn't anything unusual, there wasn't anything to where, crime was out of whack with what I expected to see. So that was my initial observations, was very good. I also, of course, in a leadership role, I met personally with every single officer and explained my expectations of good, solid police work and good customer service and reliability and responsibility. And I think everybody understood exactly what I was telling them. And I was very happy to see that despite a long commute and other things, they all were here to support my swearing in. So I wanted to make sure that I communicated a good message to them, and they've been very responsive to what my expectations are. And again, I expect good, solid police work with excellent customer service, period, with no other options there. I had our training records audited in two different ways. The representative from Post, which is the state auditing system. It's the Peace Officer Standards and Training Bureau. Don Lane from Post came and took a look at our, audited our training and background files and other things like that. And he sent us a letter saying that everything looked good to him. I also leaned on a friend of mine, a retired captain who is not here because he's retired, and asked him, he last served as the head of our personnel and training unit, and I asked him if he wouldn't mind coming in and taking a look and see if he saw anything that he found to be unusual. And his Captain Duke came in and did that for me, and he, you know, in a sense, he lifted the hood and looked underneath the hood to make sure that the engine's running well, and what he found was very good. Said that the training is in compliance, that actually the agency is about a year ahead, and he also offered a training plan for us to follow that will match or exceed Post's expectations for the next 2 years, and that's an important thing for us to follow. Also, in that, I've also scheduled most of the officers will be attending a use of force and de-escalation training, which is important to me, and they're going to be attending that training on December 9th, and I will work on getting the remaining ones into a training class as soon as we possibly can, but somebody still has to work the street, so we have to cover it as fast as we can, but looking forward to that. As I reviewed what's going on, of course, I noticed that there was a cold case homicide from approximately 8 years or so ago, and I had some great success in the past relying on another friend of mine who is retired from LAPD with over 3 decades of homicide experience, and you know, as much experience as any of us might have, nobody's going to get as good as 30-something years solving homicides in LA, and he's coming in next week, and he's going to volunteer on his time to review that case and see if there's anything that we can do to help get that case solved. I thought that was an important step. I spoke to the victim's sister about this, and so she's aware, and she's delighted to have another look at it, because it's important to recognize that there are many experts out there. If someone is willing to volunteer their time for that, I think that's a fantastic thing. I also went through, you know, we have some pending disciplinary matters, and I want to make sure that I get through those quickly to make sure that they're handled, done, and resolved. While I was reviewing that, I did notice that there's an important step of the disciplinary process was missing. There was no intermediate corrective counseling, which is, in our vernacular, is there was only a hammer present, there was no fly swatter. And I wanted to make sure that we had the ability to have a progressive discipline system instead of going from 0 to 100. And if you can only go from 0 to 100, it makes it hard to take care of some of the other things that are related to accountability. And I've drafted up a policy that is in the hands of the POA at the moment, and their preliminary thoughts are very supportive of that. We need to maybe tweak a few nouns and verbs and whatnot, but as soon as I get that policy in place, you should see a significant reduction in the amount of money that needs to be spent on attorneys and other outside influences, because we'll have another option to handle things instead of having to go 100 miles an hour on everything. I also have created a Kensington PD Facebook page, because I think it's very important to communicate with the public and push messages out. Those of you who are on Facebook, quite simple, just type in Kensington PD and hit enter, and you'll see a very familiar patch and logo pop up. And if you'd like to get information from us that way, please like the page, and we will put out information as appropriate and as we can, trying to get information out to the public. In regards to hiring and recruiting, always a struggle whether you're, you know, NYPD or Kensington PD, or if you're the biggest agency or the smallest, there's always a struggle. However, there are a few quick fixes. One of them was, unfortunately, on the Post website, which I keep referring to Post, but it is an important hub for police work. Our agency, for some reason, was listed as Contra Costa County. It was not listed as Kensington. And I don't know if someone made a clerical error or a mistake, but I got a hold of the folks up in Sacramento and had them fix it so that it actually says Kensington on the recruiting website instead of Contra Costa County. Also have spoken with a few candidates who are interested. We have 3 people currently in the background process. I do realize, of course, that that's more than the vacancies we have. The problem is that not everybody makes it through the background process. So we're trying to get as many candidates forward so that we can fill some of these vacancies. I've also spoken to a person who was planning on retiring, but is considering staying around in the business for a while. And one of the main reasons I wanted to talk to him is he has a significant amount of traffic experience. He's a traffic safety expert with a lot of experience working with the State Office of Traffic Safety and all things vehicle code related. And if things work out well, then I hope to bring him on board in one of those officer positions so that we'll have a traffic safety expert around for a little while to help give us some information, because that's an important matter. I also spent a few days in jeans and a t-shirt just cleaning up. There were some things that we didn't need to save or retain anymore. And so I took the simple step of getting a shredding company to come by so that we can get rid of some of the things we don't, there's no need to have records of someone who passed training in 1975. It doesn't matter. So, I need the space and I need to be able to put things in places, so we wanted to get things cleaned up a little bit. Also, you can see that there were chiefs here in the room. It's very important at the chief level to have good working relationships with the chiefs around. And at this point, I've had a personal meeting with the El Cerrito chief, the Moraga chief, and I'm having lunch with the Albany chief next week. Chief Geisberg and I went to command college together, so we do know each other very well already. And again, it's important for us to maintain those relationships at the executive level, because we need insight. Problems that are happening elsewhere are problems that are happening here, and problems happening here are happening elsewhere. And it's nice to have good people to bounce things off of to take care of issues. Also, I went to the school and met with Ms. Sanders, Judy Sanders, the principal up there. We've been in text contact with each other, and in fact, for today, if you had seen on the news, there unfortunately was a shooting down in near Magic Mountain at a high school there, and Judy and I texted each other this morning, and we had some increased presence driving around the school just to make sure. You never know what's going to happen, but it's our responsibility to keep our eyes on that kind of thing and be aware. And then last but not least, I have walked one of the business districts. I have not made it down to the circle yet, but I walked the business district this morning and gave my card to all the shop owners who were open and had some conversations with all of them. There were several of them that were very impressed. With the police department, they gave a lot of positive feedback, especially the bank. The folks in the bank seem to know all the officers by name, which is indicative to me of good customer service, good community policing. And I did get some insight about how the parking issues down there, there's been some frustration with people abusing the 2-hour parking time zone. So we'll work on drafting some solutions to that. So in a nutshell, that's my whirlwind of a few weeks here. As I mentioned on the night that my temporary contract was even discussed, since the board and the community has made this decision, I promise you I'm going to do everything I can to give you your money's worth or more. And I also encourage everybody, whether it's the board or residents or anyone, please call me, please stop by. If there's something that I can do, advice I can give, changes I can make, things that we can do, please consider my door to be open at any time. Thank you.
So the issue of aggressive discipline was a shortcoming in the police department's policy manual, and it's a matter of policy that you are fixing.
That's correct. So from my perspective, I have worked for 2 different sheriffs now with 1,000 employees. And during that time period, I've never seen either sheriff ever suspend an employee. And the reason why is because we have some levels of progressive discipline where, if an employee behavior needs to be corrected, there are some steps to go through. And unfortunately, in the policy that I found, there were no steps. It just went right to the hammer. And I want to be able to give everyone involved an extra layer of accountability. The officers respect that as much as everybody else does. They want to have the opportunity to have some steps in there instead of just going from 0 to 100, because 100 doesn't apply to every situation.
Great, no, thank you. I'm glad that you're finding that policy of the police. The second question I have is around domestic violence training to deal with domestic violence. I know that you mentioned that we're up to date and even ahead, and that you have another de-escalation training, which is wonderful. Are there particular trainings around domestic violence, and is that something that we could use since we have some new officers?
Certainly, we could always use it because the law is evolving each year. Post puts out a requirement of a minimum of 24 hours of training for each officer. But there are also a subset of that which is called perishable skills training. And so we have to focus on the perishable skills first. And whatever we do after that, there are certainly training classes available that we can do. I don't necessarily perceive that as a void at the moment, but extra training for things like that is always a good idea.
Thank you.
So would the board like to apologize for saying officers were under-trained? You did, at the last meeting.
What are you talking about? I've actually had it from the former chief that officers were all up to date in training. So
Sylvia just said at the last meeting, remember? I have memory.
I'm ready to move on to the agenda.
I have some board comments. If I
Yeah, go ahead.
Can we have public comments on the?
No, we had public comments before.
To ask the individuals.
Comment on the chief's report?
No, we don't have a.
We've had to in the past. People have come up, asked the general manager questions, have come up and asked the chief of police questions.
We're not done with board comments, as Rachel has asked to make a board comment, please.
All right, is my microphone, is that sufficient? No, it is not. All right. All right, there we go. Okay, first I want to thank Chief Simpkins for having officers at the October 26th pharmaceutical drop-off. Thank you very much, and also for appearing at the Halloween parade, which is a really busy day at Kensington Hilltop, and maybe a bit overwhelming early in your tenure, but I think you're a pro. I also want to offer thanks this week to all our veterans and all of those who have served, and just give, this is a side note really as a personal matter, not perhaps as a board member, but I can see now that both Chief Simpkins and I have probably warm feelings about Chapman University, and they house the Center for American War Letters. So if you are a veteran or a family member of a veteran, they are seeking correspondence throughout history to create a database of letters from and history for wartime experiences. So I will be sending a few relatives letters there from loved ones who have served. There will also be, I recognize that the CSDA conference occurred at the end of September, and I apologize, my update and our board members' updates will appear in December.
Any other board comments?
I should just point out, government code says you have to give your update at the next regular session. That's the government code.
Yes, it would have been ideal, but I found that I would prefer to offer a written record. So unfortunately, that's been slightly delayed. So is this on?
It is on. I would like to thank Chief Simpkins for informing this community about the good work our police officers have done and are continuing to do. And thank you for confirming what many of us have known privately for some time, which is that our officers' training is up to current standards, and I'm glad that Don Lane came in and verified that post-training is current and in fact a bit. So that's just wonderful news, and thank you so very much. There's been a lot of negative press about our police department for far too long, and this is very refreshing. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is, because we're skipping 10A, is 10B. General Manager Constantouris, do you want to introduce that? The CSD dues.
Put this on the agenda. This year it's a higher number than past years. This is just a check-in with the board. We have budgeted $6,400 for this item, but it is, since it's membership for the California Special Districts Association, I'm just doing a check-in with the board to make sure it's okay and get your concurrence on this.
I move to approve the dues. It's an additional $600. It's an excellent organization.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Director,
I don't have, I'm going to call the question. If anyone has anything, we're just going to vote.
I just seconded the motion.
so any comments on the membership? I think it's a good organization and worthwhile. And only, as I said, $600 more than what was budgeted.
It has been, very helpful, and I get emails on the forum, daily, if not with solutions to special district difficulties and problems.
It's been very helpful. All right, well, if there's no further discussion, Director Madavi?
Aye.
Director Deppie?
Yes.
Director Sherr-Squad?
Yes.
Vice President Desai?
Yes.
And I will vote yes, so that's 5-0. Thank you. Okay, the next item is the Public Safety Building Update, information only. And I will turn my mic over to
Point of order. What is information only? Because we've never had that, and even committee, this is not a committee report.
It is a committee report because
It's not put on the thing as a committee report. Committee reports, and even then committee reports, the public has a right to comment on.
people can comment on it, but I think they probably want to hear the update first.
Yes, I know, but I'm saying this notion as information only implies no conversation.
No, it implies no action. Do you want to start, or do you want to start?
I can start. This is sort of, but could I?
Yeah.
Is that working? So, I'll speak up. I went to the fire district meeting last night, and I'll just go over what's relevant to the public safety building. The architect gave the same presentation. Essentially, it's a cut down, condensed presentation of what he gave a couple months ago. Explained the thinking behind moving from looking at an ideal situation to where he came to, which was a fire-only design. I'm assuming the preview, what he was showing was going to be probably what's going to be shown at the meeting on Saturday with some minor changes. Some things that they did find out since I was there last was they definitely need an elevator and a lift. They got that information from the county. A lift means just a split level way to move a wheelchair up slightly. Elevator, of course, you know what elevator is. And the elevator especially means that there's even less space available to put everything else in. They also have to have the budget 50% of the cost, or 50% of the replacement building is the maximum they can spend on the new construction because of the fault line of the building. And there's a question of what that construction, the replacement cost means and how to determine it. So somebody qualified has to determine what it's going to take to rebuild the building as is, and the county has to approve it. So that number is really important. The county is going to, I guess, vet it. Once they have that number approved, then they'll have the number, the target number, 50% of that, what they can get the new construction under. And so it's that's a really important number to get, and I think that's what they're at least moving forward on getting that. At the end of the presentation, he had some next steps, and one of the next steps that he suggested was creating, working a steering committee to figure out if the fire-only design is what they want to go with, or trying to make a design with the fire and police still work. And then I have to go back, and at the last meeting, we passed an agreement that I would write a letter, or Rochelle and I wrote a letter to the fire board requesting that we could work with the architect and get it on the agenda. I got it to them, I think, 8 days before the agenda was ready, but that was too late. They had a 2-week deadline, so they couldn't get it on the agenda. But luckily, that discussion came up anyway, because the architect put it forward himself that he wasn't sure if the fire board was looking at a fire-only solution, or if they still were interested in trying to find a combined solution, and he was kind of asking direction from the board what he should do. And one of his suggestions was to create a working group of representatives from the fire district, and our district, and I imagine the chief of police and the fire chief, and try to brainstorm some ideas. That led to a larger discussion about what that working group should be. Should it be a small group, a large group, a Brown Act committee? And so I believe, if I'm right, on the next agenda for the fire board, they're going to discuss that and decide how they want to proceed. If they want to create a working group, and if so, how that would work, the mechanics of it are. Very correctly from all of it. That's my understanding. The next board meeting, the fire board, will be a discussion about if they want to still look at trying to create a combined solution, and if so, who's going to be involved in that and what the process will be.
I don't know if we'll have enough information by the next board meeting.
Right, but at least there was a discussion about they'd like to find a solution for that problem. And certainly the architect was, he wasn't clear which direction he was supposed to go in, so I got the impression that he's still looking for a decision from at least the fire board on that. Let's see, there are some questions about whether the fault really exists behind the building, because they just found it in one place, but I think the decision was that to determine if there's a fault is so expensive that it just makes sense to accept the fact that there's a fault and move forward. Now, if I would imagine that there's no way they can fit the construction in that 50% threshold, I guess you could then revisit that decision, but right now it's just going to be assumed that there is a fault, because trying to determine if there's a fault is just, it's a crazy project. And Chief Gugoni also touched on the idea of response times and why the building needs to be where it is or in the center of town. And he just reiterated that moving it down or moving it up would really impact response times negatively, and it wasn't an option. So it's pretty firm on the location of the fire building. The firehouse needs to be in the central location as it is now.
Director Debbie and myself continue to look for what could be temporary or long-term housing for the PPD, and we will be bringing forward other things in the coming months. But what we have so far is that the general manager approved and will receive a pest report for the annex building and a bid for removal of foliage around that structure, so that we can examine more closely whether or not it offers any facility for any of our administrative or police services.
It's too small for police services, like at its current size. And I propose a laterally thinking solution that this entire board has been completely dancing around. This was brought up at the fire board several meetings ago by a resident and a few residents. And I've actually sort of pilot tested it on a few other people who I know are ardent supporters of the park. And so when you consider that, really, first off, nobody is talking about building in the park. Let's get over that notion. We're building on the edge of the park along the Arlington. Why not simply take that half parcel and ask the community, given it's their land, say, would you be willing to do a joint combined modern public safety building there? These are the reasons why it's good, because it saves on not doing this, throwing good money after a bad building. And it also, is essentially avoiding all these contentious issues, because it becomes a community decision as to what they want.
Well, if you're recommending the inclusion of a public parcel of the park, Director Deppie and myself could certainly include that in our analysis of sites.
That's the site the fire boards have already analyzed to death. They already have the drawings or the conceptual drawings made.
They do, and we could include that as part of our discussion.
But you're hearing what I'm saying, right? That take this to the community instead of making it a simple 1 or 2 board decision. Because ultimately it is their land and their money.
Well, we are going to the community. We're having a community meeting on January 25th.
It's different than a community vote, I'm saying. Ask the community what they would approve of.
Well, I think it would be more prudent, actually, to discuss the pros and cons in a public way as compared with other options before we ask the community whether or not they want that. Because as a board member, the reason why I don't think everything should automatically come before the community is we want to whittle down to priorities. Because we're aware that taxpayers have a large burden, especially new homeowners, and so they are probably not prone to approve everything. I wish voters would, we could say, wave a magic wand and they'll all improve school ballot measures and increases in public safety, but they won't. So we prudently kind of go before, I think, make decisions so that we can present the best information to voters, because we have to prioritize as a board long term. Are we going to need to increase salaries so dramatically that it's out of our budget at some point? Do we need new capital facilities, so capital assets? Do we need that funding more? Do we need funding because we're going to be going for gold-plated garbage?
Can I ask you a question? Does this district have the capital liquidity to do a new building?
At this point, no, we do not.
And the fire board has already done plans. This is something where if you were to work with them, no, I can't, because the microphones aren't working. It's to allow the camera to record.
The camera will record.
Okay, I know, because I listen to old videos and sometimes it's hard to distinguish. It's more for the convenience of the recording. But I can be quieter if it helps just make people think. So, this is broken. But anyway, so the point I'm trying to make is this is a big decision with a lot of money. This is not like deciding, do we approve the $600 extra for membership? And this is one of those cases where the community has a right to have input. They bought the park, the bond is paid off, but it is still in a way the community land. So let us respect that and then ask them. And that resolves a whole ton of problems that everyone is having in this town.
Well, a vote is not free. Running an election the last time we...
It's $6,000 if you piggyback off the general, and if you're talking about special elections, yes, then it gets expensive in the range of I think it's about $3,000 or $30,000 is what the special election had cost.
Well, that's not what I'm recommending at this time as a board member. I'm going to continue. I'm happy to put the building in the park as a part.
It's not in the park. It's on the edge.
Well, it's technically currently in Kensington Park. So I'm not attempting to color the issue, but currently the land is part of the park bond.
The bond is paid off. Bond is dead. We heard that. And this is more about a community decision.
Well, so far, I've had a lot of community input on this decision, and I'll tell you, overwhelmingly, people are opposed but it doesn't mean that would go that way if we made it a more general argument. But at this time, I think that the prudent course of action is to continue a matrix of criteria that this is really oscillating. A matrix of criteria that we present to the community for different site possibilities.
That are going to cost more than working with the fire board.
We have not precluded working with the fire board. Director Deppie and myself continue to be interested to work with them.
But you're essentially binding them into a corner where they're essentially being forced to work without you. You do realize that, right? That this mess is occurring because you as a board have been dragging your feet on this issue. And it's in all the minutes that shows this. And now to suddenly say that you are, now we're working with them at the 11th hour is not saying that you're working with them. It's saying you're trying to save face.
No, what it's I've been involved in this issue for over 3 years now. And the fire board is very aware when they started this process that we needed time as a board to regroup. We were coming off some very dramatic changes in other areas that were unrelated to housing of our police department, and we wanted to address those immediately because they reflected on community safety. So we did that, and the board at that time, as it was composed, was very understanding and very kind, professional, I should say. It wasn't, and generously agreed to go forward with their own planning. They were in response and conversation with the community. So they had their own meeting June 24th, 2017, and they took feedback from that. So they've been going through this process, and we've been going through this process. We've had a lot of changes. And none of it has been, excuse me, please don't interrupt. None of it has been with the idea that we are thumbing our noses at the fire board, or that we are not interested in safe and safety or standards that meet the DOJ's requirements. So we are going to continue forward. I thank you for your opinion. I don't think it's informed, and I don't.
How is it not informed?
Well, I think it's biased towards what you think is happening. But there are reasons that this board immediately did not agree to join forces in building
on the legal
on a
opinion.
$10 or $12 million building. So we have gotten as far as we've gotten on the legal opinion. If you would like to make an agenda item that changes that or goes forward, you're welcome to do that.
I mean, well, when this all, like, when you don't have a place for the police, what are you going to tell the community? That we need to somehow spend $5 million on building something that we don't have?
Unfortunately, since in the past we've had difficulty with the differentiation between the literal and the figurative, I'm not going to really go into that question this evening with you.
No, I'm asking, it's a hard monies question. How are you going to how are you going to pay for something even when, like, all the cash resides in the other district?
Well, these are rhetorical questions.
No, it's a practical money question. It's a business question.
Practically, what I've always thought, is that I've never been angry about the amount of funding that the police force has had, because I don't think that going back to 1971 and pitching a fit about that one district got 13 cents and one got 31 is productive to the community, because we've tried to balance that with Measure G funding, and we've done a very good job. We're very close. So what I believe, both personally and professionally, is you do with what you have. We start there. We be as clear and concise and well-directed as we can with the dollars we have. And then if we need to go to the community and ask them, we will do so. But we will do so in a way that is respectful to the community members. I'm not going to throw something at a community member because I've seen their tax bills and I know what a struggle it is for families to get into this community right now. What is our average home price right now? 1.3 million?
How's that explaining how do you pay for it?
It is because those families, those dollars, I don't magic them into our budget. They come out of somebody else's household
So how do you
budget.
then propose building a capital asset? If you don't have that money, you can't go to the voters to ask for more of it.
I think at this point we've had enough discussion on it. I will say that it's my hope that we can have a building that houses both the fire and the police. And I trust that Directors Deppie and Sheriff Watt are doing their best in working with Directors Dahmer and Nagel, and that we will arrive at a solution for the community. Any public comment?
try this one, this one will get you another one.
I would like
I think we need that one. There we go. Sorry for the mic problem.
I would like to say that at the time that the residents of Kensington voted the bond issue to purchase the park, it was, they taxed themselves, and that park was to be there in perpetuity. It was not to be thought of again, however many years later, to be used for building a public safety building. There will be a tremendous backlash of people who will not approve of having the park taken away for use as a public safety building.
To clarify, we're not taking away the whole park. We're taking away the tiny
We
parcel.
are not even taking a small section of the park.
Actually, part of it's currently being encroached upon, and this board has done nothing.
It's because there are people who are wasting this board's time and money with frivolous PRA requests.
I'd like to address Rochelle's comments. Rochelle, I don't know if you're aware of what the financial circumstances.
There's some feedback. Maybe you can think that's it, I think.
What the financial circumstances were in 1976, 78, 79. Could I see a show of hands of how many people bought homes in Kensington at that time? Okay, I guess I'm in. The cost of housing was increasing at a rate of about 20-25% per year, and interest rates were going up at, I don't know, 1-3% per month, which meant that for anybody in my age group buying a house at that time, it was a relentless chase, hoping that we might be able to get just a little foothold into an itty-bitty tiny little 1,100 square foot cottage in Kensington. And on the heels of that, we were asked to approve a special tax to support our police department. My husband and I spent every penny we had buying our first home in Kensington. The year we bought our house, a 3-year drought ended, unbeknownst to the prior owners and unbeknownst to us at the time we purchased the house needed a new roof. And then we discovered that the sump pump didn't work. So for these poor us comments seems to ignore that people who came before you didn't encounter financial struggles as newcomers to Kensington. And I have great empathy for people entering into the housing market. It is a scary and daunting experience. Regardless, and even though we didn't have the money to approve the tax, we approved the tax because safety trumped whether or not we had state ones or not. So I really think that it's important for there to be a greater vision of what's going on here than 1 or 2 directors assuming for the rest of the community what the rest of the community will recognize as a priority for them. So thank you.
You can see that real estate is cyclical.
All right.
One more.
Yes, thank you. About the idea of combining the police department with the fire department in a new building, while that logically makes some sense, it doesn't make sense in another way. Arlington is the fault. We're going to have an earthquake sooner or later. So we have our fire department and our police department in a building that's in the earthquake study zone. So, what happens when the earthquake comes? The building, if it's up to spec, may stand, maybe not. Depends on the size of the earthquake. Next question is, what does the roadway do at the Arlington? That road, as you drive it, you can see the angle of it. You can see where it has its faults, where conduits go under it. So the building may survive, but the roadway may not survive. And then where are we? Thank you.
I would like to tell you the same thing that I told the fire board last night. You need to be more active on the issue of the safety building. The fire board is at a very different speed than you are. Now, you may have a lot of work right now with the rebuilding of the community center, but someone needs to be involved in this. The thing that's going to slow the fire board down is the issue of the value of the building and how much can be spent to upgrade it. And that's the thing that's going to delay it. But failing this, the fire board is moving. And I don't see how this community cannot have a place for police department at the same time that we have a police department. And from what I see on the El Solito bid, we are clearly going to have our own police department because that bid is embarrassing to give to us. They offer us 60% of our present service and charge us 140% of the present cost. So I am convinced we're going to keep our own police department. And you need to get involved and deal with the fire board, and it needs to be done now. Thank you.
One suggestion is you might check with Macaulay on the pests to get a second bid because they were very good with respect to the poison oak. All right. I'm going to move on now to the draft policy and procedure manual, section 1000, and I'm going to turn this over to our general counsel for the staff report. Yes?
This is yet another step in the update of the policies and procedures manual as the district board decided to do in November of 2017. The draft policy 1000 is the next major step in this process. And the existing policy 1000, the board will continue with the new policy at one regular meeting, then adopted it so Tuesday with subsequent regular meetings. If adopted, the new policy will replace the existing policy 1000 entirely. Today's agenda item will only be the first part of the proposed new policy 1000. The second part will contain a new record retention policy. Record retention is a very complicated issue, and the board subcommittee decided to approve this portion to allow additional staff work and consideration. The board should note that the current record retention policy the district does not contain in its current policy procedures manual, but in a separate resolution adopted in, I believe, 2002. So the policy 1000 that is in front of the board tonight differs significantly from the existing one. The most notable changes are the following. The adoption process for new and amended policies. As I mentioned earlier, there's a two-step process currently. The new policies 1000.1 and 1000.2 allows for a more streamlined process where changes could be made at a single meeting with only 3 votes. That creates the possibility of being more nimble when the board decides that that's appropriate. Of course, there may be more complicated changes where the board decides that it does need additional meetings to consider the item, but it doesn't automatically have to do that for any change that it decides to make. Policy 1010 would clarify the role of individual directors versus the board as a whole. And the emphasis is that the power to set policy and represent the community rests with the board as a whole. It's not intended to minimize the responsibility of individual directors to raise concerns, but it is intended to ensure that those concerns are raised and addressed at the board level.
because that's the elected body that's supposed to set policy. Policy 1015.4 addresses a wide range of responsibilities of the general manager. It's really intended to codify what is already in place. Policy 1015.5 lists the anticipated duties of the clerk of the board in a manner that grants the general manager the flexibility to modify those duties as best suits the interests of the district. Policy 1020 establishes protocols for staff assignments and director staff communications. This is to ensure that district resources are used effectively and efficiently to implement district responsibilities and board priorities. There's a clear chain of command with the board at the top, supervising and setting priorities for the general manager. The general manager in turn manages subordinate staff. The policy explicitly requires mutual cooperation and respect between directors and staff. In addition, the policy explicitly states that all assignments to staff must go through the general manager. Individual directors cannot assign work to the general manager or other staff except as part of authorized committee work. Staff is encouraged to make professional recommendations, but the policy clarifies that the board need not accept such recommendations. Directors may ask follow-up questions or request clarification, but should not debate with the staff, nor should they criticize the staff in public. Concerns regarding performance should be directed to the general manager. Concerns regarding the performance of the general manager should be discussed with the general counsel or as provided in the general manager's contract. Policy 1025 contains a claims procedure. This simply tracks the State Government Claims Act. Policy 1030 sets forth a proposed code of ethics. The substantive portions are pretty standard, pretty much right out of the model manual from the California Special Districts Association. There is a provision for enforcement mechanisms, including censure, to allow the board to express its opinion on any particular conduct that may be construed as a violation. Policy 1035 establishes a conflict of interest code, which is required by state law. This conflict of interest code incorporates by reference the Fair Political Practice Commission model code, which the regulations explicitly allow. The only part here that's tailored to this particular district is the appendix to the code, which lists the officials required to file disclosures and the types of interests that are required to disclose. This is not exhaustive list. Staff recommends that the board discuss the proposed new policy, take public comment, make any desired changes, and direct staff to return with an appropriate resolution repealing the current policy 1000 and adopting the new one with any changes requested by the board.
Are you staff at?
I'm under contract. You can certainly talk to me as staff, but I'm actually a contractor.
Okay, just making sure.
Thank you. I'd like to thank General Manager Constantoros and Danforth, and of course President Foley. We've worked on this policy for quite a while, and to get something presented to you, it was begun with a lot of, based on the template from the CSDA. We added things, of course, or were recommended by legal counsel, and whittled and discussed based on our specific special district. So we hope we've presented something that elevates us to some new standards and outlines some new rules that we haven't had codified before this time. So I would love to hear board comments and public comments about any changes you would request or considerations we should make.
Quick question, who's on the committee?
That would have been Eileen and myself.
Then why is it Christopher Decky was also involved in writing parts of the manual?
I think that Director Deppy, at one time, there's a social media policy that's not part of this, that he was...
But is he on that committee to be working on the policy manual?
No, he was not. He never met with us.
No, but I'm saying the point was you had 3 directors working on this project.
No, we did not.
No, you just said he was writing parts of the manual.
Director Madavi, we had separate sections and separate people working on separate sections at all times in proper order.
The social media policy is separate from this. It's a policy that's different. Will eventually, hopefully, be part of the policy and procedure manual,
but was never included in being built during the meetings that President Natoli, myself, and General
But you
Counsel
worked
had.
on that with him, with Christopher Deppe.
No, I
Yes,
have
you
not.
did. That was on Nextdoor. There is an email actually by Bob Dice talking about to Eileen how you and Chris were working on a section together. So there were 3 directors in the loop on something.
Well, I don't know where the next door, I could look
Here's
at that
an email.
and use it and respond to it at a later time, but no time did,
I actually have some comments on the policy in front of us. So they're clarifying mostly or some punctuation. On page 3, on the second bullet, talks about the general manager's role with recruiting, appointing, so on with district employees. And I just wanted to clarify the role of the district general manager when it comes to police employees, because that would be under the purview of the chief of police. But I wonder if there is any circumstance under which the general manager would actually be the person dismissing a police officer, or if this is clarified because there are other policies in place.
typically the general manager delegates responsibility to the chief
Okay.
for these matters, but he is still the head of staff, and the police chief is part of staff.
Okay. Secondly, on page 6, I believe that there is an error on the last sentence on section 1020.3. I believe it should read, the board of directors, as the decision maker, is free to reject or modify a staff recommendation, and the board's wishes will be implemented by staff even if it was contrary to a staff recommendation, or modify a staff recommendation and expect that the board's wishes. There's something wrong with that, and that the board's wishes will be. It doesn't quite read properly. So I just think it needs to be fixed.
If you strike the word that.
I think that's what I was going to suggest. Yeah. Yes. Okay. On page 10. Sure, sorry. So on page 10, section 1030.2, I'm just wondering if there is meant to be a colon after district government, or not. If it says comma, and there's a lot of listing. The first sentence in the second bullet of 1030.2, all those involved in district government, and then if this would be a colon? No, it's reading okay to everybody else?
Yeah.
Okay. I wasn't sure if, okay, that's
It's
fine.
goals, so it's not a complete sentence, the goals are the following.
Okay. Okay, yeah. I believe that is all those are my comments. Okay, thank you. Sorry. On page 6, under 1020.5, in the first sentence, do you need a comma after district staff member, comma, including the general manager, or is it just district staff member, including the general manager? I'm sorry, I'm just a bit of a grammar geek. If I was better, I would know the answer, but I'm not sure where the commas needed. I'm sorry, can you ask for sure? 1020.5, page 6, first sentence toward the end, individual district staff member, including the general manager. I'm just wondering if there's a comma needed or not.
I would put it.
I'm thinking about what my 8th grade grammar teacher would do.
It's a modifier of the district staff member.
Are you moving the comma after or before?
No,
You're going to have a comma before or and after?
I think you're not in the same place.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm in the same.
All right, first sentence. Board members should not make public comments critical of the performance of an individual district staff member, comma, including the general manager. Is there needed a comma there?
It's optional.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you for humoring me. It's okay.
I like a
All right, so,
Yeah, well, since we passed 10:15.1, I'd just like to ask a question. So it says, agenda,
Wait,
10:15.
page 2. So the general manager plans, organizes, directs, coordinates, and evaluates all district operations, programs, and resources in accordance with the board's short and long-range goals, policy statements, and directives. Again, this district operates a police operation, and that is not under the general manager's purview.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't. Police operations by government code go to the chief of police.
What section of the government code would that be?
I need to look it up and I can email it to you.
Thank you. Because it's my understanding that although the delegation is to the chief of police, and I'm sure that Tony would not want to do otherwise.
Well, in city government, the chief of police reports to the city manager.
But you do not decide operations or programs under the chief of police's jurisdiction. Yes?
Well,
No, you don't.
The chief of police is the one who is going to be the most knowledgeable person on staff about what the various requirements are. There's no question about that. We all agree about that. However, he is still subject to the supervision of the manager. The manager, of course, knowing that the chief of police is going to be the most knowledgeable person on these services and programs, universally delegates.
So in other words, the general manager can tell the chief of police to do something.
It's the same principle of the fire department, the planning department, every department. The manager would not be involved in, let's say if there's a weapons policy, something like that, that would be the jurisdiction of the police chief, not the jurisdiction of the manager.
I mean, are you evaluating the chief of police's programs?
The board, any elected board, expects the general manager to adequately supervise the chief of police.
You supervise, yes, but you do not micromanage or go beneath the chief of police.
No.
And that's not what we're proposing.
Well, you say he coordinates and evaluates all operations, programs, and resources.
Would you like to?
Yeah, I was wondering when perhaps Chief Simpkins might talk about his extensive experience and how this works in the real world.
Yes, for sure. Okay, so working for the town of Danville, I did report to a town manager, and we call it town manager because it's a town, but city manager, general manager, the terms are synonymous. And in essence, the city manager would work with the elected officials to formulate goals and objectives for the community, okay? And then the city manager, right, is I'll just talk about it. Then the city manager's job would be to evaluate my effectiveness. You know, so goals and objectives would be created in concert with the elected officials who represent the community. And then I had to come up with my own outcomes of how we would measure those outcomes. And so I have to report to somebody. I can't just, do whatever it is that I feel like doing. But it's all in partnership and in communication. And we would formulate specific outcomes. And each year, after we had a goal-setting retreat that includes the elected body, we would then measure them. We call them performance indicators. So if a goal and objective that we came up with was to increase traffic safety, we would determine what those performance indicators would be, whether it was giving traffic safety classes or reducing the number of accidents or increasing the number of citations, giving some constructive form of that. And then my job was to report back on the outcomes therein. Now, what I would expect from a city manager is if we've worked to create goals between the elected officials and the city managers, and then I fail to live up to those goals, I need the answer to that. And that's generally how that relationship works. There has to be something there. Now, of course, the city manager does not know the specific vehicle code sections of how to enforce that, and no city manager should. But the city manager, in a leadership position, oversees those department heads to make sure that the goals and objectives we formulated are lived up to and met. I'm responsible for the performance of the department, but never would the city manager then say, hey, are you looking at penal code section 1, 2, 3, 4? Right? That's my job to understand that. Does that help provide some clarity to the question?
I think you need to look at Director Modabi. He's the one that seems to need the most clarity.
I'm free to answer questions.
Well, I just want to make sure that, like, when I was reading the tone, I was supposed to go beyond you to more micromanage it. That's been the problem in the past when the position was more combined, and also when it was started to be split.
So each city manager, I've worked very briefly with Tony now. I have a personal relationship with a couple other city managers, and everybody I've interacted with, their job is to oversee, to make sure that we meet or exceed the goals that have been set. They don't go down and say, what's wrong with page 3. Yeah. That's not any city manager.
Yes, and that's the part I want to be very clear about.
I don't think that's going to happen.
That's for every department in the city, not just the police department.
Correct.
Every department. If you have planning director, it's the same thing.
Correct. Parks and Rec, any other place, we would have specific goals and objectives that are accomplished, and the city manager is going to evaluate our performance as a department head in meeting or exceeding those goals. And we have to answer to somebody if we fail to do that.
Also, so I want to. Oh, right. No, you can go. It's fine.
I think why don't we do the director's comments first and then the public? Otherwise it gets, back and forth.
So the other question I had was on 1005.3. Wait a second. Yeah. What is the budget policy for what the general manager may send staff to? That probably involves travel and other items. What is the budget or expenditure limits on that? For example, the board has a set budget for its own activities in totality.
Your question is, does the manager have the same limits?
Is that going into the budget, or is that just a carte blanche for anything that's under 5,000 as many times?
No, that would have to be through the budget.
So yeah,
If
that's
that's periodic, maybe an expensive session might be worthwhile. But major sessions like attending conferences and things like that should be included in the budget.
okay. So, other item was then. Then my other question really was on 1020.2. So,
Page 5.
Page 5. Individual director cannot directly assign work or requests for information. So is that saying that essentially outside the committee, all the directors are blind about the documents that relate to that committee's work? Or what is that exactly entailing?
The idea is that no one director should be allowed to monopolize the general manager's time.
Yes, I mean, that statement is saying that directors cannot request information unless they are part of an authorized committee.
You could rephrase that a different way if you like. However, again, the purpose of that policy is to ensure that no one director is allowed to monopolize the general manager's time.
I like
change that if you wish to accept as part of authorized committee work or in connection with an item on the agenda.
Actually, that's also wrong because by Public Records Act requests the director can get whatever they want.
Of course, this doesn't apply to what you do as a citizen. This only applies to your exercise of authority as a director.
I mean, when anyone makes a request, it is naturally a Public Records Act request, and there is case law approving this. I can also provide you the citations for
I'm
that.
very familiar with the Public Records Act request director in that case. However, the Public Records Act does not require that we create documents.
I know, but fine with creating them. I'm saying, is this primarily for, because information comes in documents and in research.
And?
I'm saying, so is this binding for both or just novel research?
This is saying that a director, in its capacity as director, cannot use that position to monopolize the general manager.
That's not answering my question. I'm saying, what is the limit on information that can be obtained? What is that?
And would it be clear that individual directors cannot directly assign work or assign requests for information to the general manager or other staff members, and then strike the last part of except for authorized committee work. I mean, because
That doesn't
I think
change the meaning.
essential point of the bullet, right, is that we cannot come in and say, general manager, you're going to do this. Or does it take away? Maybe it takes away, because we're going to be looking for, right, the point of the authorized committee work was that the chair of the finance committee would say, I do need this document for the finance committee that I.
So now certain directors have special access to financial documents and others don't?
No, it's about assigning or requesting a certain document that would need to be created for the agenda for specific work. So it's not.
I don't think it's meant to pertain to documents that already exist, which you are able to get under a PRA request, or I think it's more about, please research, the last 5 years of X, Y, and Z, and put it together in a document for me. Right?
The top of
That's
page
different.
5 actually deals with that. It says individual directors as well as the board as a whole are permitted freedom of access to any public information requested of staff and shall receive the full cooperation and candor of staff in being provided any requested information.
But then in section 1020.2, it creates this contradiction to that statement.
No, it creates the exception.
Well, then, yeah, so it's not permitted free access. That's the point.
Well, that would be a Brown Act violation.
What? To receive documents?
If they are not yet released to the public, yes. If we create something, if President Natoli and myself have a document created for the finance committee, the other directors, I'm not allowed to email it to you or any other director until it is a public document, because at that point, it's a Brown Act violation.
Well, because that's the point of the draft document, which has not yet been published. Now, bills, however, would not follow that. And those would be documents, in theory, only really, one can argue, that the finance committee needs.
The top of page 5 says that you can get existing public documents. What the 1020.2 says is that you cannot directly assign work to information. So you get the documents, but you can't create work.
So then that's a request for research or novel documents. Information
Documents. You cannot request research or assign work.
Correct.
If there's ever some confusion in implementation of this, I would suggest, as is said elsewhere in this policy, that you bring the issue to the board and let the board make the decision as to whether or not this is an appropriate use of staff time. Obviously, if it's a public document, then you get it in any way under the Public Records Act.
I'll make a motion that we, well, we don't, it's just reading it, never mind.
Still having comments, I believe, from the board and public comments.
Actually, out of curiosity, why is there not like a marked up change versus the CSDA manual so the community can see how this is different?
If you'd like to approve the template, we could put the template, make the.
I thought we're all about transparency. So the way you change the CSD manual, there's like some wording changes and additions or omissions here and there, and that has minor or significant changes to implementation. Yet you say this is the CSDA manual, and you don't tell how you changed it.
It's a template. It's available. We can make it available to the community. It would be so onerous and confusing, I think, to read these two.
It took me 20 minutes to mark this up.
I wonder if you know the word template, right? It's a basis to begin from, and then we change it that makes it work for us. That's what a template is.
The CSDA manual is the one that they have vetted themselves, is their recommendations. And so you always talk about how you want the community to know how you come to your decisions, and you want to be transparent about it. So this is a form of transparency, saying this is what the CSDA said, this is how we modified it, and we made these additions or omissions. And some of them are actually quite significant.
You're welcome to provide that analysis directly with
In other words, you don't want to let the community know how you're editing things.
No, it's a public document, and people are invited to read the whole. I mean, but it's sort of, it seems like a lot of work for nothing. If you have a question or a complaint or concern about how an individual sentence in this document, we're happy to discuss.
So
how
30 minutes is a lot of work for you, or for staff. It took 30 minutes to cross-reference them.
Great.
And it made it a
Do you
lot
have any
easier.
comments based on your research?
Yes, there are actually several. Like
So
you change
go ahead.
several sections, add new sections, and then on top of it,
Okay, keep your voice down.
and then on top of it, it's kind of hilarious when you go to the ethics section, how you add your own flourishes to it that are completely unnecessary.
We modify it to work for us.
And you don't tell the community how you modified it. That's the
not
point.
the goal. Excuse me.
No, it isn't.
Excuse me, audience, excuse me. Our job is to present a policy procedure manual for the board and the public consideration, and we have done so. If there is additional comment, we can take comment, but that's the point of this procedure.
And how do people know what to comment on, what is new, and what was just CSDA template?
The CSDA template is a document from which
It costs $200 to purchase, and it comes on USB drive, and it's not on the district website. So how could they?
Are you moving that we, with that document?
There may be copyright issues.
Oh, yes, of course, because they.
Yeah, so then that's why the annotations make sense.
Again, we have a policy and procedure manual to consider. We may present questions and comment on that document in front of us.
Do you have any other comments on any specific?
Yeah, why are we talking about the fact the district still employs limited staff when we're asking the community to pony up like tens of thousands of dollars for extra staff?
Do you have a comment on a specific provision in the draft?
Yes, 10:15.1. Why is the general manager...
Please, slow down.
Why is the general...
10:15.1, let people
Page
get
2.
to there.
Why is the general manager allowed to essentially assign staff functions or ask staff functions to be done by directors?
Because the district employs a limited staff.
And because that's the role of the general manager. If you disagree with that, you can make it, you can look for a change, and we can vote on that change.
Oh yeah, none of that is
General
CSDA
manager.
language.
Please.
None of that is CSDA language.
No, because if you attended a CSDA conference or in contact with other special districts, you'll realize that there is a wide range of special districts across California. There's something about 2,500 of us, and they range from
small like us.
cemetery districts with a half-staff person to wastewater districts with budgets of $550 million a year and 30-year projects. So we're all over the place. So the template is there to give a building block, but then like taking the Sears kits that people used to build homes off of, you take the kit and you add on for your own individual, or in this case, district need.
I thought the whole point of all these new staff was so directors would not be doing staff tasks.
We have a lot of work and we have very little staff.
Is that your answer in saying how is it good practice to have elected officials doing staff work?
We hope to not have that be the case. That would be ideal, and we will always, go for that ideal. But we wanted to maintain the flexibility should we need that.
Do you have any other specific issues?
Not at this time.
Okay.
Okay.
No.
No, okay, I'll just speak excuse me for nitpicking, just especially now. But the 1000.1, the director may also request a general manager to initiate a policy change at a meeting of the board. Is that any point in the meeting at a certain time of the meeting. It seems a little arbitrary to. First paragraph, the director may also request the general manager to initiate a policy change at the meeting of the board. It seems a little open-ended that at any point in the meeting you could say, hey, by the way, I'm going to policy change.
Well, it would have to come back on another agenda, obviously. And no matter, I suppose, when you submitted for discussion, the majority of the board is interested in that policy change.
So are you saying that in like the discussion of another item, we may realize, well, that we might need to make a policy change, and the board could direct the general manager to make a change to the policy manual based on a conversation or discussion that may have just happened in a meeting?
Yes.
That's it, okay, great. Okay. 1000.2, any policy can be amended by 3 votes of the board of directors. So what if there's only 3 directors present at the meeting?
That's 3 votes.
But then you're requiring unanimous. Is that legal?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But it would be, you can require a supermajority out of the 5-member board of electeds. What this is saying is simply you can't have, you need to have a minimum of 3. A majority of the full board, and then.
Even though this is a majority.
Majority would be sufficient.
Yeah, for this purpose, a majority would not be sufficient.
Oh, sorry.
It would have to be, we need a majority of the people in attendance, I should say, would be sufficient. It would have to be a minimum of 50 people voting this.
It would be to prevent a board from holding a meeting at, say, 4 a.m. to discuss something, and only 2 members, they know they can only get, only 3 people can come, but we've got 2 votes, so it's always got to be 3.
Okay.
You can't have a meeting with 2 board members.
No, it's 2 out of 3.
And why would you have a meeting at 2 a.m. in the morning?
Exactly.
Okay.
More to the point, I believe that the idea is if, under any circumstances, if there are only 3 members in attendance, 2 members of the board of directors should not be able to affect policy.
Okay, right.
Actually, can I follow up on that for a moment? Would this be at a special meeting they could do this, or it only has to be regular meetings?
It says regular meeting.
Well, it says, okay, at the board.
I think the policy can only be discussed at a regular meeting.
It says regular meeting.
That's board discretion, really. I don't think there's any law limiting it, but that seems within the tradition here.
Okay. Right. 1005.1, decisions to continue to discontinue our annual membership shall occur through the annual budget or mid-year budgeting process. Doesn't that sort of mean the whole year?
No, I think that we were trying to say that it would occur essentially in June or in the, mid-year, when December, or when we do a mid-year review. Those would be the 2 times that we look to put memberships in.
And what constitutes an appropriate networking activity?
Well, that would be under the discretion of the general manager and or the board.
So you could essentially say an appropriate networking activity is a Rotary Club meeting.
It could be if the general manager thought that that was the case. I mean,
is that an appropriate use of district funds?
Often these chiefs attend Rotary meetings. That's a very commonplace thing.
And city managers.
All right, page 3, second paragraph. I think supervision should be supervised.
Sorry, what section?
Well, it's page 3, second paragraph. Oh, you probably don't have that. It's section.
okay, so you're talking about the
7:15.
second bullet.
Yeah, second bullet.
The district's general counsel.
The general manager shall recruit, appoint, train, evaluate performance,
Supervise, yes.
supervise the city's supervision.
Yes.
Right.
Apologies.
That's all right. Apologies for being nitpicky. 1015.5, prepare minutes for the board of directors meetings. I would suggest that you just say that the minutes shall adhere to policy 4140. Because here you're trying to explain what the policy is and then say the policy. So if the policy somehow changes, then you don't have to change this, you just need to change the policy.
How about would you say prepare minutes for the board of directors meeting pursuant to policy?
Yeah, right.
How about we simply say pursuant to board policy, so you can just changes.
Right.
Okay, great.
Next one, 81 records, there's a colon and at the end of that sentence. I'm not
sorry, I haven't caught up.
One bullet down.
And the animals was
Serious.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
And the last bullet probably shouldn't be a bullet because the bullets are the duties of the clerk. And the last bullet is talking about the general manager having the discretion to assign some role. So it probably shouldn't be in the bullet.
Right.
I would agree.
Okay.
All right, with 1020, this is about the third.
You're saying it should not be a bullet, it should remain, but
Yes.
it's a bullet, right?
Right.
Okay.
Shift left.
So 10:20.
Oh, you're leaving it, you're
Yes.
just, you're taking the bullet out, okay.
Right. There's a 1020, I guess it's the second paragraph, a board member should avoid intrusion. Individual board members must avoid intervening in staff decision-making. Why not just say board members shall not intervene in staff decision-making? Instead of avoid, just say shall not.
Okay, shall not.
Shall not intrude.
Intervene.
I wonder if I could ask members of the audience to not be whispering and talking. Thank you.
When it gets to the core values, it has all this I language, I this, I that. It seems a little weird to me because it's a policy manual. It's not a document we're signing.
What page are you on?
That's 10.
Some of that actually comes from the CSDA's own language. It's a bit weird, I admit.
Yeah, I think it's copied from the CSDA.
Word for word.
So maybe, directors are, or I don't know, something
It is a little.
I seems weird all of a sudden.
All right.
Different format.
See if I can figure that out.
Right.
There's a couple of sections.
It's like taking an oath.
There's 3 sections,
Right.
several sections that do that.
I agree, but I don't know if it's worth the effort to change.
Might as well get
It's
the
the
way you want it
CSDA.
now.
It's your preference.
It's just clear what it means, just, so 1040.1, corresponds to the district whether mail or electronic mail is independent of the agenda. Unless the item directly relates to an item on the agenda, items directly related to the agenda will be included in the agenda packet and procedure for posting deadlines. A
I'm
couple
sorry,
of,
1040.1.
last sentence, the last 2 sentences.
10:40.1.
Yeah, so this has been, I think, discussion, an ongoing discussion, and a couple of things, I think we need some guidelines for the correspondence. There might be some language that, that we're putting in the agenda. The other thing is, we put our agendas typically up 72 hours in advance, so it's going to be tough for someone to then send us correspondence about those agenda items, because the agenda's already put up. So it's like a catch-22.
Yeah.
It does say before posting deadlines.
Right, well, posting deadlines is when we posted. So, they would assume what's on the agenda, send a bunch of emails, hopefully one of them would stick, and then that would be on the agenda.
Right, so perhaps you say something like, there's usually a cutoff, but obviously you want people to know what's on the agenda before that cutoff, so
Right.
perhaps we could arrange to distribute to board members information received after posting, but more than 24 hours before the actual
Something
meeting.
like that.
That gives you the opportunity to digest whatever's
Right.
said.
Now, these are only items that relate to the agenda that the board needs to consider or discuss in the public. It's not, we've got rid of the practice of somebody writing a letter and saying, I wanted it included in the board packet, because that's not what this is for. The items that are included in the agenda packet are items that either all board members have not yet seen or need to be discussed. So this is a little bit, I don't think it's clear.
Well, I think what we've been doing, what I thought we were doing, if somebody sends in a letter that directly pertains to an item on the agenda, then we normally would put it in the packet.
Yeah, it hasn't been in the packet.
I don't know
for
why.
years.
We all receive, if we receive a letter, it doesn't need to be in the packet.
Okay.
Not for correspondence.
Can we strike that
We
last
would
line?
frequently get an article to say this should go up as part of the packet. No, we no longer do that.
So I think the last sentence can be struck.
Yeah, I guess so too.
Well, actually, do the last,
Two sentences?
okay, last two sentences?
Well, or you end it, correspondence to the district, whether mailed or electronic, will be handled independent of the board agenda, period.
Okay.
Period.
And with that, I yield my time.
All right, any public comments?
This is now going back to the reason that the two positions, the general manager and the chief of police, were separated. For many years, we had a combined GM-COP, and it was determined that the same person who functioned in one capacity could not also function in the other capacity. That was the chief of police going to take off his hat as the chief of police and then be the general manager, was determined by the board that it would provide better government to separate the general manager position from the chief of police and thereby create a hierarchical position with the general manager being at the top of the hierarchy and the chief of police then having essentially the lower position in the hierarchy. And so that's what this board finally did, that they separated the two positions, creating the hierarchy.
Any other public comments? Okay, well, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
Are you going to perhaps ask staff to return the
Yes. Well, I was assuming that, yes.
Okay.
And we'll have this up for a vote on December 12th, our next meeting.
So December 12th,
No, this is the first reading. This is the resolution
so December 12th for adoption.
for adoption.
But you significantly changed the correspondence policy. Yeah, it had one statement and now you're just completely obliterating it, there will be no correspondences.
That is keeping in line with the current practice. I would not say that if one had to redo first hearing every time there was a change, even if that change had some impact, we would never have the end of it.
Which is exactly what happened.
All right, so thank you very much.
I'll move to adjourn the meeting.
You don't need to.
Oh, okay.
See everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.